Hey sis, why didn't you come to mom's funeral? What? I can't believe you didn't even show up to mom's funeral. It's shocking and heartless. I never thought my own sister could do something like that. I was taken aback by my sister's sudden phone call. Our mother had passed away 3 years ago, and we held a proper funeral then. I couldn't understand what she was referring to. I'm married now with children of my own. My husband and I both work, but we make sure to give our children extra love and attention so they don't feel neglected. My husband is a great partner in housework and childcare, and I'm proud of the family we've built. I'm determined not to let my children go through what I did growing up. Our parents divorced when I was in elementary school after my mother had an affair. My father found out about it because I told him. People often assume children will side with their mother, but I didn't. My mother was far from the nurturing figure everyone imagines. I never felt loved by her. She showed favoritism towards my younger sister, while I was burdened with the household chores. It wasn't just expected, it was forced on me. My mother resented me for revealing her affair and made my life a misery because of it. I still carry the emotional and physical scars she inflicted. When the divorce was finalized, my mother took my sister and left. Thankfully, my father and grandparents ensured I maintained contact with my sister, and we continued to meet regularly. However, as I entered middle school, our visits became less frequent. At first, I thought it was just a matter of adult responsibilities, but it seemed my sister was deliberately avoiding me. After she turned down my invitation several times, I asked if I had done something to upset her. My sister explained that our mother had told her the collapse of our family was my fault. In their eyes, I was the one who betrayed the family. My sister believed that if she continued to see me, she would risk being cast aside as well. She found it too difficult to contact or meet me behind our mother's back and asked me to stop trying. I told my sister that our mother was the one who betrayed us first by cheating on our father and breaking up our family. Although my sister was aware of our mother's affair, she still blamed me for telling our father. Despite understanding the situation, she remained firm in her view that I was the traitor since she had to live with our mother. She wouldn't accept my perspective, insisting it was my fault for not turning a blind eye. While all this was happening, my father remarried, and I gained a stepmother. Initially, the adjustment was challenging, but my stepmother worked hard to become the mother figure I had been missing. Appreciating her efforts, I decided to embrace my new family and cherish my stepmother. Over time, I stopped trying to reach out to my sister, and we gradually lost touch. I had no lingering attachment to my biological mother, who had favored my sister. I was able to attend college and secure a job, preparing to give back to my father and stepmother. But then, just as I thought I could start repaying them, my father tragically passed away in an accident. Although we had grown distant, I notified my sister about our father's passing, reminding her that he was still her father. Instead of expressing sympathy, she scoffed and said, "Serves him right," followed by a mocking laugh. I thought she might attend the funeral, but neither my biological mother nor my sister made an appearance. Their absence was surprising, but they both showed up later when the time came to discuss my father's inheritance. Their sudden arrival caught everyone off guard, especially given their flashy and overly elaborate attire and makeup. They looked so different from the mother and sister I once knew that they were hardly recognizable. "At least let us know when the inheritance meeting is," they demanded. We had to check every day because we didn't know when it would happen. My mother claimed she had been waiting nearby since the funeral ended, eager to join the inheritance discussions. It seemed more appropriate for her to attend the funeral instead, especially since the meeting was scheduled for the day immediately following the funeral. "Because of what you said, my poor daughter had to endure so much. You're going to give us a fair share, right?" Although they divorced and lived separately, the children still have inheritance rights. I never intended to deny that. My father's personal estate wasn't substantial enough to be widely distributed among the family. I can support myself through my job, and my stepmother is young enough to continue working. She seems inclined to work for a while longer, so even if I handed over my father's estate to my biological mother, my stepmother wouldn't be financially strained. To avoid further disputes, I decided to forgo my claim to my father's inheritance. What a fool! He made such a big deal out of a minor affair and pushed for a divorce. I agreed because staying with such a narrow-minded man was stifling. It wasn't our dad who left Mom, it was Mom who left our miserly dad. Poor you, having to grow up with such a father. My mother mocked and belittled my late father, while my sister joined in, laughing harshly and echoing her criticism. My sister went as far as to insult me, suggesting it was pathetic that I was raised by a father who had been abandoned. Neither of them showed any empathy or understanding for the sorrow and loss my father faced after being betrayed. Say whatever you want about me, but please respect our father's memory. What? The traitor speaks. You're the cause of all our troubles. And what about that drab appearance? You look older than your age, almost like Mom. With that kind of look, you probably don't have a boyfriend. If you can't attract a man, what use is it to be a woman? If you don't think that matters, you're seriously lacking as a woman. After a heated argument, my mother and sister told me to never contact them again and left abruptly. I couldn't bring myself to feel anger or disappointment toward them. Their inability to consider anyone else's perspective and their rigid self-centeredness left me feeling nothing but a deep emptiness. In that moment, I cut them out of my life completely. After they left, there was a period of quiet, but then a cough from someone brought me back to the present, and the inheritance was divided solemnly. Years later, my stepmother inherited the house my father left behind, and I continued living there. I sensed that she was thinking of me, even though I was now an adult. She tried to be a mother figure for me, and her care brought me happiness. But then she fell ill and was hospitalized. I'm sorry I didn't ask you to live with me just so you could take care of me, she said. I understand, but even though we live separately, I would have cared for you during your hospital stay, so there's no need to apologize. I visited the hospital to care for my stepmother whenever I could take a break from work. I didn't want any regrets like I had when my father was ill. Perhaps it was a form of self-satisfaction. Her time was limited, and I wanted to spend as much of it with her as possible. Throughout this difficult time, one man stood by me. Before my stepmother's illness was discovered, we had been planning our wedding. However, just as we were about to finalize our plans, we found out about her illness. I suggested postponing the marriage, but my partner felt it would be better to provide my stepmother with the reassurance of our commitment, and his presence proved invaluable to me. When the moment was right, I introduced him to my stepmother. He told her, I'm excited for us to share our lives together, the three of us. His words and support meant the world to me. He added, I have to see you in your wedding dress for your father's sake. This seemed to be her greatest joy, and she held on longer than expected. But a few days after our wedding, she passed away, joining my father in rest. My stepmother was financially secure, and I inherited a significant sum. With what she left behind, 3 years later I was able to build a happy family. However, my husband and I agreed from the start of our marriage to continue working and live within our means without depending on the inheritance. Today, like any other day, I went to work and received a call on my personal phone from an unfamiliar number. Assuming it was a sales call, I didn't pick up. But the calls kept coming, one after another. I thought maybe someone was repeatedly dialing my number by mistake. At the end of the day, I decided to answer, and to my surprise, it was my estranged sister. Finally, where were you? What do you mean? How could you forget our mother's funeral? Of course. She sounded like she was crying heavily. What are you talking about? Our mother's funeral happened 3 years ago. Huh. There was a brief silence, and then she continued angrily. Maybe your stepmother died too. I'm talking about our real mother, and calling someone unrelated to you mother is just wrong. I found her tone irritating, but I tried to set it aside, understanding that the loss of her mother was likely a significant shock for my sister. For me, my stepmother was my real mother. She married a man with a child and instantly became a parent to a middle schooler. It wasn't until I had my own family that I fully grasped the challenges she faced. I believe the experience of nurturing a life within oneself is a time for a mother to grow in self-awareness and dedication. Of course, there are many ways to create a loving family, such as through adoption, without a biological connection. However, stepping into the role of a mother to a middle schooler unexpectedly is no easy feat, no matter how you look at it. Reflecting on my stepmother's efforts and concerns, all I feel is deep gratitude. I am eternally grateful to the stepmother who raised me. She is the model of the mother I aspire to be. Biological connections mean little. My sister's so-called real mother never even acknowledged my existence. When I think of the word mother, it's my stepmother who comes to mind, not my birth mother. At first, I was confused. I had assumed she was talking about my stepmother. Once I understood what my sister meant, I responded with a lack of interest. Oh, I see. I could hear what sounded like her hitting or stomping on something in frustration over the phone. What? That indifferent tone. The funeral has already happened. How could you not attend your own relative's funeral? You're so heartless. You must not have a drop of compassion. Though she raised a valid point, my sister had also skipped our relative's funeral. Our late father loved both of us dearly, and he was far more caring than our mother. In fact, neither my birth mother nor my sister attended our father's funeral, yet they took his inheritance and spoke ill of him. If you ask me, it seems more like they're the ones who lack compassion. Indifferent? Weren't you the one who said we were strangers? Huh. You got involved in the inheritance despite skipping Dad's funeral, right? Weren't you the one who told me never to contact you again? And I only just found out about our mother's death. After a pause, my sister murmured a small, "Oh, I forgot to tell you about the funeral." Well, I'm glad you remembered. I'm going to waive any inheritance related to that woman, so you can do as you wish with it. With that, I ended the call. However, my sister, perhaps not fully grasping the situation, contacted me again a few days later. "Katie, I need your help. It seems our mother hinted at marriage to several men. Isn't that considered marriage fraud? They're threatening to sue me for compensation if I don't comply. I'm getting bombarded with demands. Just pay them. If I could, I wouldn't be calling you. Didn't you hear me say several men? It's not just one or two. Some of them seem really shady too. That's unfortunate, but let's not forget, you were the one who told me not to contact you again. Plus, it was no secret that our mother had a habit of being involved with men since she cheated on our father while he was still alive. In fact, it wasn't just one affair. If it had been a single lapse in judgment, our father might have considered forgiving her. Only he would truly know the situation. It's possible that I couldn't accept our mother, given her multiple relationships while raising us. My father tried to adopt my sister multiple times with the help of a lawyer, but I was informed that my sister didn't want to leave. I had to let go of the idea. My sister chose to stay with our irresponsible mother, even though she witnessed her behavior firsthand. Even if our mother had left a strong impression on her, my sister's decision to remain with her, despite the shared memories we have, speaks to her own responsibility as an adult. Lahats. You know you were the one calling me a traitor all this time. I don't meet a sister who labels me that way. You're the one who declared us strangers first. So don't show up now and pretend we're family. It's unwelcome. Don't ever contact me again. We're strangers, remember. I ended the call without waiting for my sister's response. I blocked her number and went back to my family. Later, I got a call from my biological mother's relatives. I thought the matter was settled, but they called to apologize for the disrespect my mother and sister had shown me. I decided to hear them out. They acknowledged how poorly my mother had treated me and expressed their shock at her audacity in trying to claim my father's inheritance after we had been separated. They offered sincere apologies for allowing her visit at a time when I was still grieving. But that's all in the past now, I said. Then they brought up my sister. Apparently, she was following in our mother's footsteps and acting irresponsibly with men. Since her return, they had repeatedly warned her that she would face consequences if she didn't change her behavior. Instead of heeding their advice, my sister had become just like our mother, and they could no longer manage her. Mother got mixed up with unsavory men, and my sister was being coerced into participating in criminal activities. Feeling trapped, my sister was also involved with multiple men simultaneously, leading to numerous heated conflicts. Reaching their limit, the relatives warned that they would sever their relationship if she didn't listen to their advice. And then our mother passed away. Given that my sister is an adult, the relatives decided to proceed with cutting ties. But right after our mother's funeral, another conflict erupted. Since then, her whereabouts have been unclear. They advised me to avoid any involvement with her going forward. I had no intention of getting involved, but I can't help feeling sorry for her, given she may have been coerced into criminal activities. Still, there should have been a chance for her to make amends. If she didn't take that opportunity, then it's on her. That's how I've chosen to see it. After ending the call, I heard my husband and children laughing joyfully in another room. I want to safeguard this family, so I've resolved to live my life using my biological mother and sister